I'm not going to do this whole problem, just a couple things I want to explain here. You see these absolute value inequalities that happen in this problem. That's just kind of a little bit of review of some stuff from advanced algebra, and it's also something that comes up in AP questions from time to time. So one of the ones on the homework is kind of like this. But if we're going to solve this absolute value inequality, absolute value of x minus 1 is greater than 1. There's a little bit of a trick to it, but before we do that, I just want to look at absolute value of x minus 1 equals 1. Like if it were an equation, I don't know if you remember, but absolute value equation, we have to set up two different equations. X minus 1 equals 1, or x minus 1 could equal negative 1. Because what's inside here could be a negative 1, and then when we take the absolute value, it would make it positive 1. So in absolute value equations, we set up two separate equations. With inequalities, it has some similarities but some differences. We do have to do it kind of twice, but set up two inequalities, but there's a little bit of a trick to it. Well, first one is just like this: x minus 1 is greater than 1, or x minus 1. If we make this a negative 1, what happens is just like other inequalities, if we multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, we have to flip the sign. So we get x minus 1 is less than negative 1. So we set up two inequalities, and we have to solve each one. Here, add 1 to both sides. X is greater than 2. Add 1 to both sides. X is less than 0. Right, so this inequality right here is the same as saying x has to be greater than 2 or x has to be less than 0. So like on our first derivative number line here, it says the derivative is greater than 0 on that interval. So when x is greater than 2, it's positive. And then when x is less than 0, it's positive. Well, for this one, when it's greater than, what I say, and this is the way I remember it, it's greater than, because we have an or statement where we have two different inequalities, two separate ones. When we do this one, when it's less than, it's a little bit different. Absolute value of x minus 1 less than 1. So for this one, x minus 1 is less than 1. And just like the other one, we could do x minus 1 is flip the sign, greater than negative 1. But in this case, we can actually compound them and put them together and write them like this. So there's still two inequalities, but they're kind of smushed together. We can do it in this one, can't do it in that one because they're in opposite directions. Here, it's kind of in between. So the way I remember this, less than, I think of it as less than, right? Because this is an and inequality. X minus 1 is greater than negative 1, and it's less than 1. This is an or. So for this one, add 1 to both sides. We get 2. I'm sorry. Get 0 there and 2 on the other side. So x is greater than 0 and less than 2. So that's when the derivative is negative. So the main thing I'm looking at here to show you is the absolute values. So for like this other one, x minus 4, absolute value that is less than 1. Since it's a less than, x minus 4 is less than 1, and it's greater than negative 1. So we put it all together. Greater than, we have to do the or.